Hi, my name is Ralph Harris. My friends call me the military guy, and I won't tell you what my enemies call me. I've done a few programs here in Ann Arbor about veterans and various conflicts down through the years. I think my first one was on veterans on D-Day. That would be June 6, 1944. Did another show on veterans from Vietnam, and as a matter of fact, John, one of our guests tonight, was in that show. I did another show on Korea and a few others. Today's program is about the Iraq-Afghanistan conflict and our local VFW post 423 support for our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Our guest today is on the far end there is John Kinzinger in the United States Army. It was a few years back though, wasn't it, John?
About 44.
About 44, Vietnam. And sitting next to me here is John Lockwood, Sergeant John Lockwood, United States Marine Corps. But before we start, I'd like to give a brief history lesson because I know we have lots of young people and frankly even some adults that may not remember the first Gulf War. It began on August the 2nd, 1990. Iraq invaded Kuwait, and our friends and many of the allies said they were there stealing oil. And of course the Kuwaitis thought they were stealing oil, so that was the word that they used. Iraq got warned by the United States and the United Nations to retreat, to go back to Iraq and leave Kuwait alone. They ignored those warnings, and so a coalition of forces led by the United States began a military buildup. The purpose was to get Iraq out of Kuwait. The result was a conflict called Desert Storm started. It began on January the 17th, 1991. It was preceded, the actual combat operation on the ground was preceded by an air phase, and we had overwhelming air supremacy. We were all over Iraq. The Iraqi Air Force hardly dared fly. The Iraqi Air Forces were quickly destroyed, and what was left of the Air Force was flown to Iran. The ground phase began on February 24th, 1991, and it was a fight between Russian equipment and United States equipment and coalition servicemen versus the Iraqis. The coalition forces did a very unconventional thing. They did an in-run. They went through the desert and they dropped fuel supplies in the middle of nowhere. Caught the Iraqis completely by surprise, had no idea that we could move, or the coalition force could move so many tanks and so much equipment across that desert. And so we isolated their forces in southern Iraq and in Kuwait. The ground invasion only lasted 100 hours. I didn't make a mistake. It's 100 hours. And President Bush ended that conflict after we inflicted what was called a highway of death on the Iraqis. There was hundreds and hundreds of vehicles, and the president decided that enough people had died, and so a ceasefire was signed on February 27, 1991, and the first Gulf War ended. 540,000 American servicemen started coming home on March the 10th, 1991. The second Iraqi War occurred later, of course. By 2003, Iraq was believed to have WMD, that's weapons of mass destruction. That would be gas and maybe nukes and things that would kill a lot of people in a hurry. And we thought, the West thought that there was a threat to the United States allies in the Middle East. This was believed because all of the intelligence services, the Russians said it, the Germans said it, the Israelis said it, the United States said it, all the intelligence services that I just mentioned all agreed that Iraq had WMD. They didn't, but the question is, why did Saddam lead us to believe that? Was it a ruse? Or was the WMD shipped to Iran and Syria just before the war started? There were numerous reports of convoys going to Iran and Syria, but at any rate, when our people went in, we found no WMD, but nobody lied. Everybody talked about lies. There were no lies. The Russians didn't lie, the Israelis didn't. How would you get all those people to lie? As a result of this, of course, the second Gulf War began. It was called Iraqi Freedom. Hostilities began on March the 20th, 2003. And the Iraqi bitter enders continue to attack coalition forces using guerrilla tactics and terrorism with weapons and munitions partly supplied by Iran. We had a surge, which our guest was involved in, and the war right now is winding down, and our troops are coming home, have started coming home, and will be finished. Okay, now to our guest. Enough of history here. Let's get to something that's important and interesting and fun. We'll start off with you, Sergeant. Personal information. We know your name, but where are you from and go to school and that kind of thing?
I'm from Saline. I graduated from Saline High School. I attended Eastern Michigan University. Upon graduation from there is when I enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserves. And that's when the journey began, I guess you could say. I joined in 2003, which obviously was after September 11th, so the war had been going on.
Did that have an effect on you joining September 11th?
No, I wanted to join anyways. When I was in college, I spent 3 years in ROTC, which is the Reserve Officer Training Corps program. I was looking at becoming an officer and changed my mind and enlisted instead.
Excellent. Do you have children?
Yes, I have twin boys, Benjamin and George.
How old are they?
They'll be 17 months this month in August.
Oh, you got a young family. That's cool.
I do.
Excellent. Congratulations. How old were you when you were in Iraq?
I was 26.
And what was your unit?
I was in Weapons Company, 1st Battalion, 24th Marines.
Want to tell the audience what that means, because they don't know.
Each Marine battalion is organized, well, in the infantry at least, is organized with a headquarters company. They handle a lot of the behind-the-scenes operations, and then you're going to have your Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie companies, which are line companies. They go out, do patrols, speak with the locals and whatnot. And then you have a weapons company, which is what I was in. They have more vehicle-type equipment. They have vehicle-mounted weapons, such as the 50 cal and the Mark 19, which is a fully automatic.
50 cal.
Yeah, that's exactly. Mark 19s and whatnot. And so they do a lot of assisting the line companies if they need heavier support.
Excellent. I see you're a sergeant now. Now, what was your rank when you were in Iraq?
I was a corporal when I was in
Okay.
Iraq.
How long were you in Iraq?
From September to November of '06.
Oh, wait a minute. September, October, November. That's only 3 months, and usually guys don't come home after 3 months. I suspect that something happened.
Yes, yeah.
What
it
happened?
was, November 19th, 2006, the vehicle I was riding in was struck by a buried IED.
What's an IED?
It's an improvised
I know, but the
explosive
audience
device.
doesn't.
Right, it's an improvised explosive device. It's a bomb. It's a homemade bomb.
Yeah.
It was buried. We were on a gravel roadway, and what the insurgents would do is they would dig it up, plant the bomb, cover it back up, then they would take water and spray it over where they had dug, and when it dries, because the water had dimpled, upon falling would dimple the gravel, and when it would dry, it would look as though nothing had been buried there.
And as I understand it from reading, there were lots of munition depots all over Iraq filled with artillery shells and that, which the bad guys could go back to and steal stuff and get what they needed to make their bombs. Is that true or false, or did you hear anything like that?
Yes, it's correct. The first convoy that I was in that was hit by an IED, it was several vehicles in front of me. That was if I recall correctly, was an artillery shell. I don't recall how big it was, but they would take old surplus ammunition and use it.
And again, if I'm not mistaken, the Iranians were helping the Iraqis with some of their shaped chargers or something. Is that true, or did that come later?
No, we were instructed upon those. I can't remember if they were called the shape charge or not, but it was basically like an all copper. It was like a huge chunk of copper that was shaped almost dome-like, and it was just packed behind it with explosive, and it would, obviously go forward at tremendous velocity and had a lot of mass behind it, and those were primarily for taking out armored vehicles.
And it would raise the devil with a Humvee, of course.
Absolutely, and Humvees, they burn like paper anyway, so if you get hit, your Humvee's going to catch on fire.
And a Humvee is basically a modern Jeep. John remembers Jeeps, and a Humvee looks like a little baby truck with canvas on it, right?
Right, weighs a lot more too.
And it weighs a lot more, yeah. So Iran was involved in Iraq, killing American and coalition forces.
Well, I don't.
Personally, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the people I saw there were Iranian or not. You know, I couldn't tell you that. But there were surrounding countries that were assisting.
Supplying weapons.
They were supplying weapons. They were even supplying people too. The people coming into that country weren't necessarily. Some were from Iraq, but others were from Iran. And
Yeah. Did you see any enemy combatants?
yes,
Bad guys?
yes,
And were they all old or young or whatever?
no.
Don't you have a
The
story
first
about
one, yeah. The first one, or the one that stands out to me the most, is we were driving through town. I was in Fallujah. That's the town I was in.
in a Humvee?
In a Humvee, yes. Yep. I was the rear vehicle, so I was in the turret, and I would actually turn my gun. I had a Mark 19, turn my grenade launcher so that it faced to the rear, because I was the last vehicle. And I saw movement out of the right corner of my eye, turned my head, and it was a boy, a small boy, 9 years old, perhaps 8 or 9 years old. I can remember what he was wearing and everything. And I saw his arm come down and pull back really quick, and and he looked surprised when I made eye contact with him, and he took off running. I thought that was very strange, and I no sooner had that thought, and a grenade blew up
So he threw a
next to me.
grenade.
Yeah,
9 years old.
he was trying to get it in through the turret,
Yeah.
which is because it's open where
Yeah,
I'm sitting, and it had gone over my head and landed underneath the vehicle and took out several tires and whatnot. So that definitely was the most scared when I was over there.
Now, obviously, you already told us that you're wounded.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about your wounds? What happened to you?
Yes, as I said before, I was hit November 19th of 2006. There was a lot of activity going on at that time. One is Fallujah is known as the city of mosques. There's mosques everywhere. It's considered a holy town, or city, I should say. And also that time of year, Ramadan
Religious
was
holiday?
religious holiday, and there's a very large increase in activity, insurgent activity during that time, and as there was when I was there. And I don't recall the events of that day when I was hit. It took my memory from that time. Leading up to that, I do remember talking about we had this operation coming up and what we were going to be doing. And I was told that we were on patrol. Like I said, there was this buried IED. We went over top of it. I was told it was about a 400-pound bomb, which it was large. I was informed that was the largest one that my unit had come across, whether they had found it or it had been detonated. It killed the driver, who was a friend of mine, Lance Corporal Jeremy Schock. He was killed. I was seriously wounded. And, the way we sit in this Humvee,
You're close.
yeah, people don't realize how close you are. And the injuries ranged from death, serious injury, scrapes and bruises, to a minor concussion. And it's just amazing that something that large, you can be sitting right next to it and be unscathed.
Now, John, we're going to get to you in a second. I know you're feeling like the Lone Ranger over there, but let's
I'm
continue.
fine.
Let's continue with the sergeant here. So, what happened to your body? What happened to you? What were your injuries?
Well, from head to toe, the short version is my right arm and hand was the only part of me that wasn't injured in some way. I had a frontal lobe contusion, which is basically a severe swelling.
Is that on left side or right side?
Well, no, just the frontal lobe,
Okay,
the whole
the frontal,
front
okay.
It's just like a severe concussion, a lot of swelling and everything. So I had these scars because they had to basically cut open the front of my head there and kind of remove part of the
It
skull.
looks good now.
Yeah, thanks. Broken nose, lost my left eye, and then I had shrapnel go through my left hand and wrist, broken back, pelvis, tailbone, 2 broken legs, 2 crushed feet. I had 4 inches of bone that were missing in my left shin.
That's amazing. Other than that, there was nothing wrong with you, right?
Yeah, walked away from it. Brushed it off.
That is amazing. Well, I'm obviously very happy to see that you survived that and are here and back
Well,
with your wife and
You know,
kids.
I think
John?
one of the important things in his recovery, which was about 3 years completely, was the ability to. He lost 2-3 inches in your leg.
Yeah, I lost. No, I had 4 inches missing.
4 inches, and they were able to reconstruct and
Graft
over
bone?
time stretch that.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's no metal down there. They've actually got bone from your own body, or?
Get cadaver in from me and from my hip.
Wow.
he had a halo that
So-
Yeah,
would
I
just
know the halo
continually
things.
stretch, and got his leg back to.
Wow, cool.
It's amazing.
Now, in case the audience is wondering, how do you know all this? Well, John's commander of the post, of which the sergeant is a member of, and so am I.
Right.
And they've been talking. Did you lose any other close friends besides the Lance Corporal that was in the thing?
Yes, prior to that time, I believe he was killed in October. Maybe it was early November. I don't recall now. His name was Sergeant Burgess. He was the friend of the company, nicest guy in the world. He'd give you the shirt off his back without hesitation, and he was the first one in my company that was killed. He was killed by a sniper.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
And when did you come home? It was November of?
well, one more thing, if you don't mind, if I go
Sure,
back,
go.
I'd like to
No,
point
go.
out about the enemy. We're talking about enemy combatants. Is that very few people kind of realize what an enemy combatant is. Everyone thinks it's an insurgent, with the AK-47, and he's shooting. And I'd just like to point out, this is something I like to drive home to people, is that just because they don't have a gun doesn't mean that they're not the enemy. There would be people responsible for driving down the road and digging a hole. That's all they do is dig a hole. Then you'd have someone else that would come by and they would just drop the bomb off. They wouldn't even bury it, they just drop it off. And then you'd have someone else come by and bury it. And then you'd have a fourth person that would actually activate that bomb. And so, in the news and everything, when they talk about insurgents and enemy combatants and stuff like that, it's not necessarily someone with a gun. There's many facets to it.
And nobody's wearing a uniform. It's hard to tell, and there's no
Correct.
front lines. See, I come from an era, I'll be 75, so I remember Korea and World War II well, not because I was in them, but I just remember them, and you could always tell who the bad guys were. They weren't hiding, so to speak, amongst the people.
Yeah.
So you came home in November of?
I was sent to
Hospital?
the MASH unit in Fallujah, and I was sent to Landstuhl, Germany.
Yeah. It's a big place.
Yes. I only remember a few things, and I was heavily medicated at the time, so I don't remember too much from it. Then I
Any
was sent
cute
to
nurses in there?
He doesn't remember.
Not that I remember.
Doesn't remember, probably could have cared less.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't in the good part of the hospital, but
Okay.
then I was sent to the Naval Hospital, which is in Maryland. It's right outside of D.C. near Walter Reed, and I arrived there. I want to say about Thanksgiving Day.
Okay. When you came home, how were you treated?
Very well. I had my family met me at the hospital, so I had a tremendous amount of support there. Friends were always checking in on us. They were taking care of things back here, homes and whatnot. People that didn't even know me that were in the community. Everyone bent over backwards, and you see fundraisers all the time for troops. I had those put on for me, and which was 180 degrees to what this generation had in the Vietnam era.
Now, thank you for sharing very much, and we're happy that you're home and healed as good as we can get you, and you're looking damn good, that's what
Well,
I say. John?
The one thing he hasn't talked about is his wife, Lisa. I mean, she was by his side from the time he came to Bethesda and setting aside her college career and everything else, and was with him most all of the time, right?
You're making me look bad by you mentioning that, not me.
No, I know,
So
buddy, but
you're killing me, you know that,
No,
right?
no.
But yeah,
Hey, we're in this together.
my my wife, hands down, is my biggest supporter, and it would have been impossible without her.
Without her, that's wonderful. Now we're going to turn to John. John, you're in Nam, and you're here to support the sergeant, and you're commander of Post 423, and you are a national vet of some sort of the year and all that kind of stuff. Now, don't be bashful and tell the audience about yourself.
Well, first of all,
Oh, we got to see that picture of when
First
you
of
were a
all-
young person.
now
Look at
this
that.
was me,
How old were you?
20 years old.
And you're in a bunker,
1966, in a bunker in Vietnam.
and you were a radio operator.
That's correct. That was, you can see some ribs there.
You were
Some
skinny.
hair. I was a dude back then, man. Just like all other 20-year-olds,
Anyway, now back to this
But-
National Vet of the Year stuff and all that. Please share with us.
Well,
Why do you do these things for
I have no idea. All I know is that my Lord, my God, works through me and directs me to do things. And people give me awards for doing what He's directed me to do. I enjoy what I do. I do it with a passion. And I don't know, I just do it, Ralph. It's,
You know, we had another a soldier that was supposed to be here tonight, an officer, Adam Best, and right this morning he was going to be on the show, as both of you well know, and he got ordered to be in Camp Grayling because he's going to go to Afghanistan. He's a first lieutenant, and the word is that when he gets up there and when he gets over to Afghanistan, he'll be a captain. What's John, you know him, and he's a member of 423. And so what's 423 going to do with Adam Best?
Ralph, Adam Betts is our senior vice commander. He's been involved with the post for just a couple of years, but you know, he is without a doubt a young officer, a leader of men, and that's what he'll be doing before long on his third tour.
Now, he was in Iraq, wasn't he?
He served one tour in the Marine Corps in the Philippines, chasing around the Abu Sayyaf in Mindanao.
And he went to ROTC, I hear?
Then he went officers training, and then he became an officer. He went to Iraq and served a year in Iraq as a rifle team platoon leader. Now he will be XO or CO for a rifle team going over to Afghanistan. That'll be in a couple of months.
Now, if the public wants to help, tell the public what you're doing now. The post is going to adopt his unit?
We, at our last meeting, said, Adam, our post would like to adopt your unit. There are programs nationally where organizations can adopt a unit, and adopting a unit is meaning that, you know, when Christmas comes, you send Christmas cards, you send cards, you send items, you know, it's a personal connection between an organization here and that unit overseas doing our work that the government has asked them to do. You know, Ralph, Vietnam veterans have been in the forefront of supporting, you know, these guys. Our Vietnam Veterans Chapter here in Washtenaw County, in fact, started doing Support the Troops rallies right after we went into Iraq. We did one the Saturday after we went into Iraq on the Diag here at the University of Michigan. You know, it's very important that the message is sent out that, you know, the guys who go and serve are not the ones that make the decision to go there. We're doing the work that our government has asked us to do.
So what can the public do to help you in this adoption of Captain Best's?
Well, we would like, you know, anyone within the area. We do packing, we call them packing parties, every other month at the VFW. In fact, August 9th will be our next packing at 6:30 at the VFW post. It's at 3230 South Wagner Road.
Now,
if you want to donate funds, it costs money to, believe it or not, it costs money to send packages to our troops. Each package costs about $17 in postage, and if people would like to donate, they can, you know.
How many packages VFW sent so far? Because I know it happens every month.
Our VFW's package shipped probably about 800.
Okay.
We pack every other month. Our Vietnam Veterans Chapter, which I'm also very active in, we're over 2,100. So between the two local organizations, we shipped almost 3,000 packages.
Now, Sergeant, when you were there, did you get care packages from any other places, or did you get it from here, or is it important, or didn't you get any?
We got a lot of care packages, not only from our family, but certainly organizations like the ones that John has set up.
Make a difference?
Himself. Absolutely. There's always goodies in there, you know, cookies and, you know, trinket. You know, there'll be some little trinket in there of some sort that, you know, you're out there in the middle of nowhere. So
and
you end up
strange
having
stuff that you need, like baby wipes? Did
Oh,
you
absolutely.
get those? And pantyhose? What do you use pantyhose for? Well,
I don't know about the Army, but in the Marine Corps we don't.
well, no, they used it for
pantyhose.
sand, wasn't it? Didn't they use? All right, maybe I'm wrong here.
You know, being in the military, you become very good at improvising things.
Yeah.
When somebody sends you something, you know, whether it's a panty liner that they use in their forehead, to, you know, to do things like something like that.
They did use
guys do it, you know.
they did use tampons for
Yeah.
bullet holes, for bullet wounds. So when it was shot, they could.
Well, they're clean, they're right shape.
And they swell and they plug up,
Yeah.
you know.
So
That's, guys learn, man.
And now if I'm not mistaken, John, at the end of the show, your name and phone number is going to be up there, so if somebody
If
wants
anyone
to...
has a question, please call. You know, we're willing to accept anything. I mean, we got a call not long ago, our VFW post, would you like 100 cases of Girl Scout cookies? Well, I mean...
Is the Pope Catholic? Yes.
Exactly. So we have 100 cases, and we'll be packing some of those on Monday. All we do is put a little card in there from the Girl Scouts that, you know, if the guys want to send a note back, they can send it to the Girl Scouts thanking them for donating them. And, you know, we'll ship them. I mean, we ship Harley-Davidson shirts. We got a connection here locally where we've shipped over 4,500 Harley-Davidson shirts. Anything that these guys would like. I got baseball gloves. I manage a baseball team here in Ann Arbor, and I put out the call. You got any extra baseball gear? You know, get it to me. We'll send it over. Those guys, gloves and balls, you know, they're guys, they're kids. I mean, he was 24, right?
No.
He was an old man.
26.
26. He was an old
Yeah,
man, but I mean, there's a lot of
higher
young guys over
scale
there too, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you
I was
graduated
old.
from college.
Yeah, I was old.
When I was in Berlin, everybody was 19, 20, 21 at
Well,
most. Unless you're an officer or a sergeant, of course. You get a little older when you're a sergeant.
Probably half of them over there are that young, and ball gloves and that. We send frisbees. We send things that guys like, and girls too. Believe it or not, Ralph.
There are a lot of females over there.
One thing that we don't hear about, during the Vietnam War, we lost 8 women in the Vietnam War. The 58,000 women, 58,000 killed. The last number I saw was we've lost over 80 women in OIF, OEF, and that number is probably much larger than that. So
Okay,
women
now
are certainly a bigger part of this war than people understand.
We're running out of time, John and Sergeant. In front of us here, we have a picture that's sort of fun. I forgot about it. It's my fault. But it's a picture of one of our
post members,
and I'm given a brain...
Stephen Cummings.
Stephen Cummings, and he's sitting in Saddam Hussein's chair. This is during the first Gulf War in one of his palaces. And I really like that picture. It's sort of cool. Anyway, I want to thank you, John, for being here. And Sergeant, thank you very much for your service. And especially, you can't ask a man to do any more than you've already done. God bless you. And
Thank you.
take care of you, and welcome back to Ann Arbor.
He has a lot of work to do now, though, Ralph, because he has those twin boys.
Oh, yeah. You got to raise a family. Anyway, so on behalf of my 2 guests and Post 423 VFW, and all of our servicemen serving everywhere in the world, whether they're in a combat zone, whether they're peeling potatoes or getting shot at, thank you very much, and God bless America.
Amen.